Hi, this is Andrew Schoneberg for KSQD. Alison Van Diggelen is a journalist interviewer for the BBC. She also contributes to Public Radio International's The World and KQED's The California Report. Alison Van Diggelen's recent focus is on her first book, The Love Project, inspiring stories of love, loss, resilience, and joy. It's based on conversation with surprisingly diverse people she's met in Carmel by the Sea, where she lives. I recently had the pleasure of interviewing Alison, and that was easy because she's so articulate, enthusiastic, and joyful. The first half of this 50-minute show focuses on her experiences as a broadcast journalist. The second half focuses on her book, The Love Project. So, Alison, how did you get into broadcast journalism?
That's a very good question. I started off my career doing a profession called, I was a chartered surveyor in the UK, which is basically a real estate professional.
Oh.
And I worked in London and did marketing materials and calculated internal rates of return on investment properties. And that really wasn't lighting my fire. And so when I moved to the United States, I wanted to reinvent myself. And I'd always been a writer, whether it was a correspondent with pen pals. And so moving here to the United States in 92 was an opportunity to reinvent myself and become a writer and a journalist.
Okay, so how did you reinvent yourself? I mean, once you were here, what happened? How did you progress?
So I think my first published piece was for the Bay Area Parent. I was a new mom and I wanted to share my experience. And it was a real epiphany for me, and I think it's talked about a lot more. But being a mom it turns your world upside down, especially if you've had a career and you choose to stay home, which is what I did. And it wasn't as easy as I thought. It was really quite challenging. And so I wrote about that. I had a website called Silicon Mom, Silicon Valley Mom, and I wrote about the experience of being a mother. And it was actually one of the first websites in 95 that took off.
Oh, wow. That's a
and
long time
I would
ago.
hear from mothers suffering from postpartum depression and share my wisdom with them, what I was learning about the process. Not that I suffered it myself, but I was very empathetic with people who had. And Silicon Mom became a forum for new mothers and all mothers to share their experiences, the joys and the challenges of motherhood. And then from there, I got an internship with KQED, which is NPR's station in San Francisco. And I worked with the great Michael Krasny, he was the host of Forum for many years, also a professor, and he became my mentor.
And what is Forum?
So Forum it's an ongoing daily show, Monday through Friday, 2 hours of literature and current affairs focused on the Bay Area, what's going on in the Bay Area, what new authors, what plays, what is going on, and politics as well. Politics is included, and it allows people to call in. So it's very much audience participation, and I learned from the best. I got to do pre-interviews on the phone for Michael Krasny, and I invited him for lunch on my last day. I said I'd love to go for lunch with you, and I told him I would like to create my own podcast. And instead of laughing at me, he said, "What a great idea. You'd be good." He just gave me that encouragement as any good mentor would. And I launched, in 2008, I launched Fresh Dialogues, which was my podcast. And I was very lucky with my contacts in Silicon Valley. I got to interview a lot of top people. My first celebrity interview was Martin Sheen.
Oh, wow.
And what a sweetheart he was. He treated me, we were equals. And for me, he felt like a dear uncle. There were no airs and graces at all. And we talked about the environment because that was my focus with Fresh Dialogues. I wanted to be part of the green revolution to kind of wake people up to, hey, climate change is happening. We need to take action. So I did Fresh Dialogues for many years. And as I say, I got to interview some real top people, including Meryl Streep, Richard Branson. Through PBS and KQED, I got to interview Elon Musk. And that was a career-changing experience for me. I was invited on stage at the Computer History Museum, and we had an hour and 20 minutes with Elon Musk.
I watched part of that, I believe. I think you had 2 interviews with him on your website or one of your websites, and I watched a bit of it, yeah. So how was that career-changing?
It was career-changing because I was able to use that as a stepping stone to the BBC.
Oh. They were impressed, right?
I think they were like, oh, she's well connected that she got to interview Elon Musk because, at the time he was doing SpaceX and Tesla. Very busy man, hard to nail down. It took a year before we actually got him on stage, but it was a year of asking and doing pre-interviews with his team and whatnot. But I have a great story to share with you, and that is, and I tell my kids about this, and if anyone is, building their career or looking for a change, what happened with me is that great truism, one door closes, another opens. And I was working on a piece it was NPR's The World. And I was working with a new editor I'd never worked with before. And the pitch was, I would like to interview Chinese entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, and explore their journey here and how this culture clash is working for them or not.
Oh, interesting.
And it was an interesting one, I thought. And this editor, she listened to it. And I spent a lot of time interviewing all these young entrepreneurs and told them, you're going to be on NPR. And they gave out a lot of their valuable time for all these interviews. And I sent it to this editor at The World, and she said, no, there's not enough culture and it's too businessy, too techy. So I went back and I interviewed them again with this cultural focus that I felt, that she said she was looking for, redid it, and she said, I'm going to give you a kill fee, which means I'm going to pay you a fraction of what we agreed we would pay you, and we're not going to air it.
Wow.
And I was kind of devastated, not for the money, but for the fact that I promised these young entrepreneurs that they would be on NPR. So I was determined to contact everyone I knew in the media space in Silicon Valley. And so I wrote to the BBC World Service Facebook page, and I said, I have this report. It's very timely. It's good. And by the way, I've also interviewed Elon Musk, and I sent a video clip of that. And I think that before I knew it, within a few weeks, I had several shows on the BBC World Service saying, would you contribute to us?
Wow.
It was, so I love that story because it really is, it's a lesson in tenacity, and it's a lesson in don't give up. If someone gives you a kill fee or says, I'm not going to publish your book.
Nobody gives me a kill fee. They don't give me any fee.
You're listening to KSQD, Community Radio for all of the Monterey Bay. I'm Andrew Schoneberg, and I'm speaking with Alison Van Diggelen. She's a journalist interviewer for the BBC and other prestigious broadcast media organizations.
I was going to ask you about that Elon Musk later, because it was very obvious that you had a really good rapport with him, and he had a really good rapport with you. I mean, he was very friendly and likable, and you seemed to admire him. And I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about him now?
So you're right. We had good rapport, despite the fact that for an interview like that on stage with thousands of people watching, normally I would try and do a pre-interview to build up that rapport, and he was not available. So we literally met almost 5 minutes before we went on stage. But I think my genuine curiosity, and this was in 2013. So he was the savior. He was going to save humanity from climate change. He was all about, we need to take action on climate change back then. He hadn't gone to what I would call the dark side.
Yes.
I was really pleased how the interview went. You're right. I mean, people said to me it was almost like a therapy session. It was about technology, but it was more about the man behind the technology, why he made the decisions. And one of the funny questions, I said, Elon, could we see you being creative?
Oh, interesting.
And he blushed like a little school kid. And he said, it happens a lot in the shower. And I take really long showers. And it was so funny. But yeah, this is how his creativity is sparked. He has these long showers, and he's just got that brilliant mind. So yeah, I'm really quite proud of that interview. I think it's had over 1 million views now. And this is the amazing thing, Andrew. When you look on any online platform, especially YouTube, there are trolls out there, there are naysayers out there. Most of the comments, I would say 95 or plus % of the comments are very favorable. Great interview, very insightful, and I'm amazed at that. And I think it's because you're right. We had this amazing rapport, and he really opened up to me. It was like magic was happening on the stage, and I think it was my genuine curiosity. And the other thing that I think worked is I don't put people on pedestals. My father, who was a working class Glasgow man, union man, he always said, we would watch the Queen's speech every year. And not that he wanted to, but my grandmother, his mother-in-law, mother-in-law lived with us, and she was a big royalist. So we had to watch the Queen's speech. And he always reminded us, the Queen of England burps and farts just like the rest of us. And I love that because that really taught me. I think that these words stayed with me. So whether I'm sitting across from Elon Musk or Martin Sheen or Meryl Streep or whoever it is, I've interviewed prime ministers, Julia Gillard from Australia. I just treat them like, a peer. I'm able to, I don't know, it's like I don't put them on a pedestal. And I think that was why the rapport was good, and he really opened up. But to answer your question, yes, I was really sad to see him go to the dark side and endorse a certain person who I'm not a fan of.
You can say it. I mean,
yes, I would rather not.
All right, that's fine.
I do believe he saw an opportunity to be in this camp of this current administration. And he saw an opportunity because one thing that if you've watched some of the video, you'll see Elon Musk has huge ambition to get to Mars. And I think he realized, if I throw my lot in and support our current administration, I may get funding to go to Mars. I don't know.
There must be.
That's one of my
I suspect
theories.
there must be more to it than that.
Yeah. But I think this relationship has soured, two big egos, and he's pulled back from that. But I think he's still very influential, and he's still brilliant, even though he makes some crazy decisions. I think at heart, he's not doing it. A lot of people say, "Oh, he's doing it to get rich," doing SpaceX or whatever.
I think he's so rich.
It's not for the money. I think underneath all the bad decisions he's made, I think there is a good person trying to do their best.
Really,
but
okay.
I don't know. That was the person I interviewed, and things have changed, and. I hope he'll show his true colors and be a force for good again, because he was very much, when I interviewed him in 2013, that's 13 years ago, he was, I want to save the world. We need to take action on climate change and stop polluting the world. And, not to excuse him, but the fact that he took over Tesla, that did transform transportation. I mean, we wouldn't have the number of electric vehicles we have today were it not for Elon Musk and what he did. But like I say, I'm not a dyed-in-the-wool supporter. I don't agree with a lot of what he says and does, but fascinating character. I mean, I think he...
Could you talk to him? You think you would have an opportunity to talk with him again?
I would. I think that would be fascinating.
I wonder how you've been able to make a successful professional career as a journalist and interviewer and commentator. So many capable people do it out of passion, but they're not able to reach a mass audience or make a living at it. Was it just that you had some lucky breaks, or was there something else?
Well, like I say, that Elon Musk interview was career changing. And I think I pitched it to a show called Business Matters on the BBC World Service, and they hired me as a regular contributor to their show. And that was like Forum, KQED's Forum. It was a Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, and they wanted me to talk about technology. I was living in Silicon Valley at the time, and so that was a regular gig for me. Once or twice.
But you had done things before, the professional things before that, right?
Yes, I had. Yeah. Yes.
Was it just that you got that internship at KQED? And
I think that helped. And
obviously you were very capable. So.
And I think also prior to that, I did have a column in the San Jose Mercury News. And then I did have a regular profile section in the Business Journal. And so that, it all builds, you learn as you go. But as far as the BBC, I contributed at one point. I think I was contributing to 5 different shows. Wow! There's a show called Tech Tent, Business Matters. I was actually. This is a very timely thing. So we're hearing about Elon Musk now, a trillionaire, a man being a trillionaire. It's just unfathomable. Yeah. But I was working for the BBC when Apple became valued at $1 trillion. And I was on the 6 o'clock news or whatever it was, the prime show on TV. I was interviewed because they wanted someone from Silicon Valley. And that seems so trivial now. It was a big deal at the time. So, so there were many shows I contributed to. And in fact, probably the highlight of my BBC work was there's a show called Panorama, which is like 60 Minutes in the UK. They do hard-hitting, deep dive pieces. And they did a piece about Bitcoin. I think it was an hour-long show. And I got to be on that. I was one of the interviewers, but I interviewed several people in the Bitcoin world in Silicon Valley, venture capitalists and people that were, early investors. So I got to interview them, and I was on that show. That was kind of the pinnacle of the highest thing I did. But when I moved to Carmel in 2020, I was already souring a bit to technology and the grand promises. And, Elon Musk was moving to the dark side at that point. And so my interest became more health and mental health. And COVID got me really interested in mental health and how therapists are managing to keep doing their therapy work. I interviewed a local therapist here called Manfred Melcher, and interviewed him for the BBC, a show called Health Check, all about how are you doing this remotely? Does it even work? Because there's something about being a therapist remotely compared to, the body language you learn from being sitting like we are across a desk from one another.
You're listening to KSQD, Community Radio for all of the Monterey Bay. I'm Andrew Schoneberg, and I'm speaking with Alison Van Diggelen. She's a journalist interviewer for the BBC and other prestigious broadcast media organizations.
So are you still doing interviews for the BBC and the World and so forth? Or
Yes. So I'm working on a piece. This again would be for Health Check about Ohana. So Warren Buffett's sister, who's a local Carmel resident, she gave over $100 million to help the youth in the Monterey County and beyond, to give them a facility that would where the psychologists, the psychiatrists, all the social workers could be under one roof.
Now, when you say the youth, you mean like troubled in quotes, troubled youth, or
well, people who anyone. I believe there's a cutoff at 18 or 19.
Is it for all young people, or
Well, this is the interesting thing. It's called Ohana, which means family in Hawaiian, and the whole idea is this new model, and this is how I pitched the BBC. This is a new model of treating mental health. Rather than waiting until the teenager is suicidal and wants to end everything, they're trying to nip it in the bud. And the whole idea is let's bring in the whole family. This is a family way of bringing health to young people rather than let them struggle alone. So this facility brings in the mom and the dad and the siblings, and everyone learns how to be more supportive to that person who is struggling. And they've had some, it's early success. It's early days, but I've interviewed 2 of their young people who've come through the program, and they were both suicidal when they started at age 13 to 15, and they both come through the program. I believe at least one of them has aged out. She's 20, but she cannot say enough good things about the treatment that she got. And I applaud Warren Buffett's sister. I'm forgetting her name, but the fact that she has given this money to allow this to happen. So I still have to interview some other outsiders to opine on what Ohana's doing, and is it really a modern template for treating mental health?
How do you establish trust and rapport with famous people who might be jaded, wary, and inclined to give pat answers?
Okay, here's a good story for you. So I, as a freelancer, I didn't have an assignment from the BBC or from anyone, but I heard through the grapevine that Meryl Streep was coming to San Francisco. So I got myself a press pass for that, and she walks in like the Queen of England, a young, beautiful Queen of England on platform heels. She comes floating in like she is the queen, and everyone is fawning around her going, oh, I loved you in Sophie's Choice. I loved you in Out of Africa. And I'm thinking, okay, I need to say something that she's never heard before. And in the heat of the moment, she came right by me, and I put my hand out. I said, I'm Alison. I didn't even bother with the last name. Van Diggelen's too confusing. I said, I'm Alison. I'm from Glasgow, Scotland. How is your Glasgow accent? And she was so thrilled, because she's a real smarty pants. She was so thrilled to get a question that wasn't a fawning and something she's heard a million times. She threw her head back and laughed, almost cackled. It was great. We had a moment. And then she actually said to me, she looked me right in the eye with a big smile. She goes, and she put on this Glasgow accent. She said, I love how you say murderer. That she'd obviously was thinking of Macbeth or something, right? So it was a moment. So we had this moment in this busy reception, and then later on it was followed by dinner. And right before she sat down at her table, I went running up with my little recorder, and I said, I'd love to have a few words with you. And so that was a way of, on the spot, building that rapport. She was like, oh, here's someone I can have a fun conversation with. And I did that with Elon Musk. I spent a year preparing to interview him by watching all the other interviews he had done, and thought, I want to ask him stuff he's never been asked before. That was kind of my
And how do you think of these things
They just come to me. My husband says I have a superpower, and I think it is curiosity. I think I have genuine curiosity, and I think with Elon Musk, I listen, and with anyone, I listen to their answers and then do a follow-up, right? So that's how you get into a deeper level. It's like, tell me more,
Yeah. I find when I interview people that very often they just rattle off something and just go on to something else, or they don't understand that people might either not understand what they're talking about, or or people would like to know more or might like to know more about that, So any other tips?
For building rapport, I think, look someone in the eye and nurture your curiosity about them. Research them until you're like, ooh, that's interesting. And also, I was thinking about my audience. I think that's a good tip for young journalists.
If people want to listen to or watch some of your interviews, where would they go?
So you could Google my name, Alison Van Diggelen, and Elon Musk.
Why don't you just spell your name?
Spell my name. So Alison with one L, Van Diggelen is VAN space DIGGELEN. And if you want to watch the Elon Musk one, you might be surprised at how kind and thoughtful he was back then.
Yeah, it was quite charming.
Yes. Yeah, if you put our 2 names in your Google search, it will come up, and video, you'll come up with that. But I have a lot of interviews at freshdialogues.com. That's still ongoing. And if you just Google my name and look up videos, I've done quite a few promotional videos for the Love Project.
You're listening to KSQD, Community Radio for all of the Monterey Bay. I'm Andrew Schoneberg, and I'm speaking with Alison Van Diggelen. She recently published an uplifting book, The Love Project, inspiring stories of love, loss, resilience, and joy.
Well, let's focus on The Love Project. The Love Project explores themes such as what's the secret to enduring love? How can resentment grow into tender, loving care? Is it possible to find gratitude after the death of a loved one? How to embrace singlehood and revel in friendships? Can you rebuild your life with love and forgiveness at the core? And how to celebrate your sexuality without shame. I don't think that you fully discussed how did you come to write the book and what was the process?
Right. Well, the book is, like I say, it's a bit like, do you know Steinbeck's Travels with Charlie?
Yes.
He went around the United States basically interviewing interesting people. Similarly, I went around Carmel interviewing interesting people in Carmel, and Carmel is so full of amazing people, but there's a universality to their story. They're not just Carmelites. But there were two pieces of inspiration. One was a negative and one was a positive. The horrible thing that happened to me, because this book is a memoir, and the horrible thing that happened to me, I was hiking in Mexico and two stray dogs came towards me, charging towards me like shots from a cannon. And I didn't have time to get out of their way, so I turned side on. Big mistake. One of the dogs hit me right below the knee. Not intentionally, but upended me. My feet were ripped from the ground. I fell back on hard ground on a trail, a gravel trail, snapped back on my head, knocked the wind out of me. And I lay there thinking, I'm going to die. This is it. And that horrible experience, physically I recovered, but mentally it really messed me up. And I've, you know me a little bit, but I'm wired to be joyful and optimistic. But that experience put me in a very dark place, more like my father. He was kind of a depressive. And that journey to find the light again after being in that dark place, I was looking around for, oh my gosh, what's joyful in the world? Everything seemed dark and negative and cynical. And so around that time, my mom, who'd been a widow in Scotland for over 20 years, she fell in love. Yes. And witnessing that love, and she was like a shy teenager. And then she went fully into love. And she now, this happened she was 89 and she's now just turned 94. So 5 years ago this happened. And she still has this special friend in her life. And they're just adorable together. He's 10 years younger and he just adores her. And it's just a lovely thing. So I saw the transformative power of love. My mom was the kind of mom growing up. She would say, your lipstick's too bright. And, she's a lifelong Presbyterian. She brought us up with pride comes before a fall, hide your light, this kind of thing. And I saw her mellow. And she finally said the words that any child wants to hear, I am proud of you, darling. And that was so beautiful for me. And so that was the real inspiration. I was like, wow, what a love story. I wanted to write about her love story and ask people in Carmel, what does love mean to you? And also the ulterior motive, as well as writing a book for the first time, was holding the mirror up to my mom and say, look how lovable you are. And look what you've inspired. She has been to Carmel. She no longer travels on an airplane. She's too fragile. But she knows Carmel and loves meeting people. And so in a way, these 30 people you meet in the Love Project, they're an introduction for my mom. Say, hey, Mom, you can't come visit me, but I want to create this portrait, this beautiful story from each of these interviews I did with these people. And she is loving this book. She's read it twice. And she keeps calling me up and saying, Alison, send me some more copies. I've got this friend. I want to share it with this friend. And it's just lovely how it's resonating.
I'm going to have to read that book. I haven't read it yet.
Yes, well, I brought you a copy,
actually. Oh, you did?
Yes.
Well, there are little perks of doing these radio
that was
things.
the least I could do. Yes.
Okay, so let me think. So Did you initially, when you started talking to people and hearing these stories in Carmel, was it already in your mind, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to interview people, or was it you just started having those experiences and then you thought about?
Very good question, Andrew. Excellent question. I thought one of the first interviews I did was my neighbor, and we changed some of the names they wanted for privacy. Some of the names are changed, but he's Danny in the book, and he's a dear neighbor of mine. And I went to him and I said he lived with his mother, who was 100 when we moved in. Wow. She was turning 100, and I never saw her. And I was like, is she really there? She the invisible woman? And I was really curious about the relationship between them. You know, he's in his 70s, moved back in with mom. I was like, I wonder how that is. Because, sometimes he would say to me, he's a bit of a joker and he's funny. And I said, how's your mom? And, most of the time, my mom's fine. And then he said to me one day, my mom is doing okay. She will never die. And that kind of got my curiosity. I was like, oh. So anyway, I asked him, I said, I am doing a piece. And as a freelancer for the BBC, I really genuinely wanted to do a story on longevity in Carmel. What is it about Carmel that people are living to 100 and beyond? So I invited myself into their kitchen and got to meet his mother, interviewed her. She used to be the pianist actually at the Carmel Foundation and at the Mission Ranch. A wonderful woman. And I interviewed her and him, and he told me about this amazing, I saw the love between them, the way he held out a glass of water with a metal straw, no plastic straws for mom. No fast food for mom. It was all organic. It was all the best. He was so loving with her. I thought, ooh, here's a love story. Not the romantic love story, but a mother and daughter, a mother and son. Yeah.
You're listening to KSQD Community Radio for all of the Monterey Bay at 90.7, 89.7, and 89.5 FM, and streaming at ksqd.org. I'm Andrew Schoneberg, and I'm speaking with Alison Van Diggelen. She recently published an uplifting book, The Love Project, inspiring stories of love, loss, resilience, and joy.
But the story that came out was amazing. I interviewed his mother first, and then we went to another part of the kitchen. She was quite, short of hearing. And hard of hearing, I should say. And I said, tell me about this. There seems to be this beautiful relationship. Has it always been like this? And he basically said, I felt betrayed by my mother, abandoned by my mother when I was a teenager, that she had got this great job up here and he would not move. And so she left him with strangers. She found a little, sublet in Laguna Beach down in LA and left him with strangers and to get this job. And there's always two sides to a story, of course, but I thought that was really powerful. And so this relationship for anyone who's estranged with a loved one right now, I love Danny's story because it gives you this, maybe on the horizon at some point, everyone will mellow and you might end up living with one another or at least finding some kind of rapprochement. Because I think there are a lot of people that are either estranged or have very challenging relationships. And I think, Andrew's saying he's included. I think almost everyone either has one in their circle or knows someone. And it's a difficult thing. And I love Danny's story for that because I'm all about telling all these stories, these 30 stories. They're all real, gritty, raw stories, but they all have some kind of uplift, some kind of optimism at the end. Even the story that you referred to earlier, can you find gratitude after losing a child? I didn't think that would be possible, but Laura McKinnon, who used to run a yoga studio here, in Carmel, she lost a baby in childbirth. And you would think as a mother, I can hardly imagine anything more devastating, but she was able to find purpose in the loss. She went back to yoga school and learned grief yoga. And she is now a guru in grief yoga. And she feels that she has impacted so many lives, whether they've lost a child, a baby, even a dog, any loved one, she can work with them and help. She says, I even feel gratitude. And I think there's a lot of that in this book about finding, facing our challenges, because no one goes through life smoothly. No one. It doesn't matter how rich you are or the family you were born into. Everyone has challenges. And I think Laura's story is such a beautiful lesson for us all that, you know, no matter what hard things we face, we can find something good to come out of it, whether it's growth, strength, new strength.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Very interesting. Very meaningful. Very meaningful.
I was very curious about the secret to enduring love, and I interviewed a man whose name is changed in the book, but his name in the book is Andor, and he was 90-something. And I met him on a random walk with my dog, and what a sweet old man he was. It was in the northwest part of town, and there were views between the houses, views of the beautiful shining sea. And when I stopped, and we both just raved about what a beautiful October day it was. And he told me that he's very popular with the squirrels. There were all these squirrels.
He's popular with the squirrels. Okay.
Scrambling around at his feet. He was feeding the squirrels on his front porch. And he was a little disheveled. He was really needing a haircut and an eyebrow trim, leaning on his walker, old man, but charming. And I said, "Oh, you're very popular with the squirrels." And he said to me, "The squirrels and the birds are my only friends." And that, of course, broke my heart right open. And I wouldn't normally do this, but he invited me in, and I went in, and we got chatting. And he told me that he'd recently lost his wife of 60 years. And he said it was like My Fair Lady. They had this beautiful relationship, but he had helped given her confidence and whatnot. And so I said, wow, 60 years, that's a really long time for newlyweds or people thinking about, or people in a marriage but struggling. What's your secret to enduring love? And he laughed and he said, it's quite simple. Be in the moment. And he and his wife ran a restaurant in town. And I had to take the restaurant name out. But he and his wife, every night, didn't matter how late the restaurant stayed open, they would take a walk on the beach hand in hand. And that was them being in the moment. But I think for anyone who's listening, you know, just taking time, putting your phone away and looking into the eyes of a loved one, be in the moment with them. And I think that's a lovely piece of wisdom. But I ask other people I meet on my travels when I'm doing my book tour. I was back in Scotland with my mum in March for the Scottish Mother's Day. And we were out for lunch, and I saw this couple my mum knew, and I said, "What's the secret of your 40-year marriage?" It was so funny. They looked at each other, they laughed out loud, and they said, "A right good argument from time to time." You know, it clears the air. And that just cracked me up, that I think each couple has, you know, their answer to that. But I think that idea of being in the moment, having a good argument, or, you know, having some humor around it, and being best friends, that's other things I've heard from people. Yes. And being kind, remembering to be kind.
Yes. I think as I've gotten older, I'm a little more kind than I used to be.
For now, Andrew, I am so focused on love. My book, The Love Project, it's a lot of people have said, "Oh, you know, what's your next book?" And for now, I feel I could talk about The Love Project and love for the rest of my life. It's so uplifting.
Well, you could do a sequel.
Maybe.
Love Project 2.
That's true.
More of the Love Project.
Yes. But what happens?
Son of the, or daughter of the Love Project.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, like Toy Story 5.
Yes, exactly.
But I'm hoping that someone in Hollywood will see the potential, because I think this could be a beautiful Netflix series or Amazon series showing the diversity in a small town, because it is, as you know, set in Carmel. The world right now is starved of love and kindness. There's so much hatred and polarization. Absolutely. And this is why people are picking up The Love Project. And I am absolutely thrilled that people are reading it and calling me up or emailing me or through my Instagram or Facebook and saying, "We want you to come and talk at our event." We met at the Carmel Foundation, but I have events lined up through 2027, all the way through August, because people are saying, "We want to schedule you. Your message will resonate with our community organization, and book groups are loving it." Because what's happening, as you experienced at the Carmel Foundation, people are hearing the stories. My events are a little bit of reading from the Love Project, but it's mostly, as you experienced, it's let's have a community discussion about love and loss. And what's happening is people are sharing from the heart, because I think this book comes from the heart, and people are getting to know one another on a deeper level. I did an event at the Rotary Club, and Graham Robertson, who's, he's the president of the Carmel Residents Association. He was at the Rotary Club, and he invited me there, and he wrote to me after, and he said, people shared way beyond what we'd normally share. Something kind of almost magical happened, that it's bonding people on a deeper level.
You're listening to KSQD, Community Radio for all of the Monterey Bay. I'm Andrew Schoneberg, and I'm speaking with Alison Van Diggelen. She recently published an uplifting book, The Love Project, inspiring stories of love, loss, resilience, and joy.
Is The Love Project an audiobook, or would you make it into an audiobook?
I'm actually working on it right now.
Oh, okay.
And it's a lot of work to record each of these stories, but I'm very excited. And I didn't even consider for a minute hiring someone, because there's something about the Scottish accent.
Oh, sure. You should do it yourself.
Several people have said to me, I could listen to you reading the telephone book. And
what's a telephone book?
I know. What is a telephone book?
Okay.
Yes, for young listeners, yes.
Yes. If people want to purchase a copy, where would they go?
So anywhere that books are sold. I always tell people, try and get it from your local bookstore. And if you're in or near Carmel, that would be Pilgrim's Way or River House Books. Or in PG, Bookworks.
Bookworks, yes, I know that.
And there's a beautiful bookstore in Santa Cruz.
Bookshop Santa Cruz,
Bookshop
right?
Santa Cruz. That is
Right.
a fabulous store, and they all have my book. And if you live in a remote area or you're not able to get out and about, there's a website called bookshop.org, and they work. You pick what your local bookstore is when you order it, and they get a percentage.
Oh.
And that's a lovely way to support your local bookstores.
What's that called again?
Bookshop.org. Bookshop.org.
Okay, cool. And what's it called again?
The Love Project. The full title, there are several books called The Love Project. The full title is The Love Project, A Journey of Intimate Conversations. And it's a blue book with a huge heart on it. And that is a painting by Delia Bradford, who is a beloved Carmel artist, who very kindly gave me permission to use her beautiful painting, because it's Carmel Beach. And just looking at that painting, the cover of the book, will bring a smile to your face, I think. One of the other things that's very interesting about being a published author is the feedback I'm getting, because there are so many people, a lot of listeners they'll have a book in them. I had a book in me for a long time, but I didn't know until these two things happened what the book would be. But when I'm in an author-rich event, I was just in Santa Barbara at the Writers' conference there, and when I'm with fellow writers that haven't yet published, I love to tell them, face your fear. Listen to Elizabeth Gilbert from Eat, Pray, Love. She was the author of Eat, Pray, Love. She's done a lot of very successful books, and she has a wonderful podcast or story about facing fear. And she says, fear is part of any creative journey. It's in the car with you, but make sure it sits in the back seat and has no control over the steering wheel or even, the tuner, the radio. And I love that, because I think it's so important to acknowledge that fear is part of any creative journey. And facing your fear is so worth it, because I had a lot of fear around putting myself out there and sharing some of these stories, because my story is woven through these other stories. And I share a little bit of my family challenges and whatnot. But on the other side of that fear, once you are a published author, when you get that first reader feedback, someone who says, this book changed my life, I see things differently. One of the pieces of feedback that made me cry was from Yogi David, one of the people I interviewed. He had a client who shared the book with her mother, but her mother's very conservative. And she said, I want you to read the Yogi David story. This is someone who's changed my life. I want you to understand who he is, where he's coming from. The mother read the story and said, I want to keep this book. I love the writing. I love the stories. And the daughter was like, Mom, you're not going to like this book. It's got gay love. It's got trans love. It's got kind of sexy stuff you'll not approve of. And her mother shocked her. She was gobsmacked when her mother said, I am open. I'm ready to learn.
Wow.
And that is just one of the stories, one of the pieces of feedback that I've had that it's worth it for just that one reader feedback, that this has changed the dynamic of a mother-daughter relationship. Wow. And it's brought my mother so much joy when she hears stories like this. And one other quick story, one of the love stories in my book is about a woman who became a correspondent with a death row inmate in San Quentin. They ended up getting married so that they could have conjugal visits. That story is a beautiful story. A reader in Silicon Valley told me that she read that story and now she's corresponding with I think it's a death row inmate in Kentucky.
Oh my.
And so seeds of kindness are flying out of Carmel, out of California. And that story really cheered my mom, because my mom, like I said, lifelong Presbyterian. She's always supporting the underdog. She used to work with homeless people, refugees. She has refugees she's supported who consider her a mother to them. And it's a beautiful thing.
So how did you get your book published? Was it just because you had enough impressive credentials that they said, oh, sure, yeah, or was it a challenge or what?
So I published with Luminary Press, and they're a hybrid publisher. And before that, I was going to go. Okay, now
what is a hybrid?
Hybrid means you are hiring, you're paying up front for an editor, a cover designer, and a team of people that will publish your book for you. You pay up front, but you get to keep all the royalties. With traditional publishing, they're keeping a percentage of your royalties. I've already broken even on what I paid. Luminary Press, based in Oregon, I cannot say enough good things about them. And the reason I went hybrid is traditional publishing takes at least 2 years. And this book, as I said earlier, is for my mother, who's now 94. And I thought, as a good journalist, I have a hard deadline here. Her health wasn't so good a few years back, and I thought, I don't have time to faff around. I want this book out fast. Luminary did it in 6 months, which was, everyone went pedal to the metal for me. It was amazing because they all knew it was for my mom. Normally it would take 8 to 9 months maybe with Luminary Press, but I highly encourage anyone who's listening that has a book in them. They have several packages. You could pay for the minimum, medium, or the full package where they hold your hand through the whole process and give you a deep edit. I went for a kind of a lighter edit, and the team were superb.
You write on your website that volunteering in the classroom at Rancho Cielo, which is a Salinas school for disadvantaged youth, is your greatest source of inspiration. Just tell us briefly about that, please.
Yes, so Rancho Cielo was created over 20 years ago by Judge Phillips, who kept seeing the same students, young people, come through his court and go and join a gang again, serve their time, and come back in again. So he thought, we need to do something as a community. So this school now offers, I believe, 5 or 6 vocational skills. So these are students that have dropped out of the regular high school in and around Salinas, and they come in the classroom and they get their high school diploma and they learn something else, whether that's car repair or clean tech for homes and whatnot. I'm working with the culinary students. It's the Drummond Culinary School.
Oh, culinary. Yes.
Yeah, culinary. And they are an amazing group of people. We have Chef EJ and Wanda Straw, and they have fantastic credentials, and they've created this beautiful family atmosphere. So I'm in the classroom Monday mornings to help the students with their English reading, essay writing, comprehension, and I love it because it really grounds me, and I feel that as a team, we are helping change lives here. People that might have gone into gangs or were struggling because home life is a challenge, they're now learning a very marketable skill. So they've all come from the beautiful story arc from starting in a bad place to graduating with flying colors, and the world has opened up to them thanks to the team at Rancho Cielo. So I can't say enough.
You can meet Alison Van Diggelen at 2 events next week. Thursday, July 16th at 5 p.m., she'll be one of 8 presenters taking the stage at a Moth-style story hour. Storytellers each present a true story about themselves. Contact the Carl Cherry Center in Carmel to see if tickets are still available. A second show later in the evening is already sold out, and it's a very small venue. Then on Saturday morning, July 18th at 9:30 a.m., Alison will be moderating a panel of prominent authors, including Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist Jane Smiley and local authors Meredith May and Lisa Crawford Watson. It's part of the Carmel Book Festival, a free event at Carmel Plaza Shopping Center, which is in downtown Carmel by the Sea. This is Andrew Schoneberg for K-Squid. Thanks so much for listening.